from the comfort of your home. This Cedar Valley Community Conservation Workshop is an event we like to host annually, and so we're glad we've been able to switch to a virtual environment so folks can stay safe at home and still learn about the conservation opportunities around their home, backyard, and throughout the community. So we have a great setup of speakers this evening here. They're going to highlight a variety of conservation topics. And so we'll be either playing videos or having folks present. And then after each session, we'll have a couple moments to field questions. And so I would highly encourage you to use the chat feature. If you have a question that pops up to you on your mind, feel free to go ahead and type that in, and we'll try and get to as many as we can. And if we're unable to get to your question, we will have a closing slide that will have all the contact information for our presenters, so you can directly follow up with them thereafter. We'll go ahead and get things started here. So let's switch gears. And tonight I'll be highlighting ways. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started with the first presentation here. So Water Conservation District and the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. And tonight I'll be highlighting ways you can help our community by managing the stormwater runoff on your property and focusing on rain gardens and permeable pavement. So what's the deal with stormwater? Well, I know we all have our little homes and think we're our own little island, but we as a community are deeply connected. And although our homes may be small, they still have a large cumulative impact. So we're going to have a little thought experiment here and make a magical 1-inch rainstorm event come upon our imaginary home, average sized residential property. And with just a 1-inch rain event, the amount of stormwater runoff from the average size roof is about 900 gallons. Adding in the average size driveway, you add about additional 500 gallons. And the larger portion comes from compacted yards. If there's a lot of clay, water's not infiltrating well, that can help contribute an additional 2,600 gallons. So in total, just from a 1-inch rainfall, that could be about 4,000 gallons of water running off from each house here in our community. And you add that up, and one house contributes over 128,000 gallons of stormwater each year. And that's where we really have those impacts community-wide. You think of flash flooding, you think of water quality issues, but the more pertinent one that folks might be concerned about is when they have waterfront property that they did not intend to have. So we're going to talk about some of the solutions. Although you may not have a small home like this where we can easily implement conservation, we'll talk about ways you can rainscape your home and incorporate native landscaping and green infrastructure. So focusing on rain gardens. So rain gardens are really landscape features. They're bowl-shaped depressions in the ground where we direct water running off from hard surfaces and encourage it to temporarily pond and then infiltrate into the ground. And so we utilize native prairie plants to assist with that. And this can really be equivalent to basic landscaping and management that you'd have on your own yard, but it really helps beautify and have those additional benefits of water quality. So there's a couple different types of rain gardens. The first one's just a basic rain garden. So if you have high quality soils that water can actively infiltrate through, then the construction's pretty simple. We really just have to excavate out, maybe bring in a little bit of higher quality soils, throw some mulch in there, and add some native prairie plants. But if, like a lot of areas, you maybe have water that doesn't quite infiltrate well, maybe it's compacted clay soils or something like that, we might have to do what's called an enhanced rain garden. And this involves excavating a little bit deeper, bringing in more quality soils, and having an outlet structure, usually a pipe to convey the water. So that way we don't have water ponding in these rain gardens for extended periods of time. We only want water in there for less than 24 hours. That way there's not any nuisance issues or damage to the plants in your soils. So, over the last few years, we've been able to implement rain gardens throughout our community, working with interested homeowners and community partners. And each one of these is custom designed to fit their landscape, to fit their budget. And so some of these were done by the homeowners themselves. Some of these involved volunteers, and some of these were done by professional landscaping companies. And like I said, that's kind of the customization that can be done for each one and really helps fit the needs of the homeowner. So you can see a wide variety here, all different shapes, sizes, but still have the basic structure there. And so I could spend multiple days highlighting rain gardens and going into the details of it, but I will highlight that there has been a recent document that came out here just a few weeks ago. We had the rain garden manual, but we had some professionals help local conservationists provide some input and have updated. So we now have the rain garden design, and this includes a lot of additional information that the previous manual did not have, but really covers everything you'd need to try and implement a rain garden on your property. So I would strongly encourage, if you're thinking about a rain garden, go ahead and download this. This is free, available as a PDF on iowastormwater.org. It's also available as an Amazon ebook for a small fee. So this is really the how-to and the same documents that I reference anytime I'm working on a rain garden design. But just to get some basic overview, so probably one of the biggest questions folks have is, how do I size my rain garden? Well, it depends on your soils. And so there's some simple soil tests you can do to see how well water infiltrates, but that will help determine if you can get away with a basic rain garden or if you need to do more of an enhanced rain garden. So it's based on a coefficient, a percentage of the amount of hard surface that's going to be coming to that rain garden. And I'd say that the average size rain garden we like to go as with a 6-inch ponding depth for the basic rain garden, which is generally about 10% of the hard surface area contributing to it. So that's when we have good quality soils, greater than 1 inch per hour percolation rates. And the rain garden guide includes these documents, so I'd say go ahead and reference those. But this can help you calculate exactly how big your rain garden would need to be based on the drainage area. So it has some fillable forms. You can go ahead and input that your personal data, and then it'll spit out the results for how big of surface area you need for your rain garden. And that's where some of the customization comes in. You can do any shape that you want for the rain garden as long as you kind of meet that minimum size there. If you're limited on space, you can go with a deeper ponding depth. So that's some of the personal touches you can do to make a rain garden fit your landscape there. And if you're not a professional landscaper, no worries. There are included designs, just example guides you can go ahead and utilize, and different shapes and sizes, including different prairie plants. So if there's some specific plants you want in there, you can kind of put those out, put those in, pull other ones out, and get it really customized for yourself. And another thing folks usually ask is, yeah, what's the cost? So another great thing about the guide has added now is cost estimates to try and figure out how much materials you're going to need for your rain garden, how much topsoil, compost, sand, mulch, if you need rock and additional materials. So it includes those basics, and you can kind of just calculate that, get a good cost estimate for your rain garden, and yeah, come up with a materials list So that way, if you're going to the store, landscaping company, you can purchase all the materials you need for a successful implementation. So once you have your plan all worked out, installation isn't too tough. You get your materials, then you go ahead and stake out the area of the rain garden, kind of measuring that out. It's a good idea to spray paint it to help you visualize, make sure you're happy with the way it's going to look. Then comes the fun job of excavation. So it's always good to have an idea of what you want to do with those excavated soils. If you have some depressions in your yard to fill them in, if you want to give them to a friend, what you're going to do with those exposed soils. So think about that as well. Maybe get some ideas. But then you go ahead and add in the amended soils. So this is a mixture of compost, topsoil, and sand. And this really helps the native prairie plants that are going to be in there to grow, as well as helps the water infiltrate better. So utilizing rototiller can help incorporate that into the soil and make it easier to work with. But then you go ahead and add the mulch, add the plants in, and then you end up with this beautiful landscape feature. So switching gears to permeable pavements. So we all have driveways. There's hard surfaces in our area that we can't quite get away from, but there's ways to make those pavements more sustainable. And so permeable pavement's a great option. It allows water to infiltrate through those cracks you can see in that upper right corner into a rock chamber underneath, and where it temporarily stores the water that's running off from the property and allows it to slowly infiltrate into the soils. So this does require higher quality soils to be a good fit. So that way it's not just a buried pool for water to sit in. But you can kind of see this is a cross-sectional image of the permeable pavement, that rock chamber underneath that creates that storage for it. So we do rock of various sizes just to try and ensure that it's even. That rock chamber is somewhat compacted, so that way we don't see any heaving and the pavement can stay level. And here are a few examples of driveways of homeowners that switched from traditional concrete to permeable pavement. And as you can see, these are attractive green infrastructures that are really helping improve water quality here, and yeah, in a very attractive way. And then I would also say there are options. You don't necessarily have to do pavers. You can do grass pavers if you have low maintenance area, maybe somewhere a back shed, somewhere you still need access to. This is a good way to reduce your input there as well. So I'm highlighting the local resources in the area. So I myself, as a watershed coordinator, am a local resource for you if you are interested in these types of practices. And my days are varied, but a lot of the time it involves paperwork to assist citizens like yourselves that are wanting to implement this type of conservation, whether that's design, assisting with paperwork, completing information. That can occupy quite a bit of time. So try and save that from you. There's also some good local resources. If you're wanting to do some of this investigation yourself, I'd say a really great opportunity is on the EPA's website. And you can conduct a stormwater assessment of your home and just typing in your address, and it can come up with some very detailed information about hard surfaces on your area, the soils, and kind of help guide you on what conservation practices might be a good fit if rain gardens or permeable pavement are an option. Otherwise, if you're looking just to try and calculate the amount of hard surfaces on your property, if you're a Cedar Falls resident, they do have an online GIS website where you can go ahead and zoom into your home address, and they do have some features allow you to draw and measure polygons on there. So if you're a little tech savvy, it's pretty straightforward, but that can help you calculate the hard surface and help you figure out how much runoff might be coming from your property. Otherwise, the Black Hawk County Assessor has an online tool as well that you can go to, type in your home address. We'll come up with a detailed report for your home, just the basic layout, so you can kind of calculate the size of your house, of your garage, of any structures you may have there. And like I said, that can definitely assist with sizing of these conservation practices. Another really good tool is using your own eyes. So going out during a rainstorm event, seeing the way the water is flowing, and how it's interacting with the landscape, designating out any of the structures you have. This can help you identify if you do maybe have some green space that you could implement conservation acts. You don't necessarily want it to be the wet spot in your backyard that's always ponding water. That's not necessarily a good spot for a rain garden or permeable pavement if they're constantly wet. So that's maybe something you can look into if you're wanting to get involved. Otherwise, if you're curious about your soils, now is maybe not quite the time to go out with a shovel and start digging things up. But there is another online tool, the Web Soil Survey. So this is another free tool. You can go ahead, type your address in, kind of mark out your property, and it will come up with a detailed soils report for you and let you know what kind of soils you might be dealing with, whether they're silty, clayey, or sandy, or something in between, usually a combination of them. And these detailed reports can give you an idea of your basic landscape backyard and what you might be looking at. Another good resource, if you're not feeling up to designing and installing a rain garden, and I don't know too many homeowners that want to tear up their driveway themselves, install a permeable pavement, or back on their patio, there are professional local landscaping companies that will assist with this. They can design it for you, they can do the installation. So we do have a plethora of them here locally to choose from. So we can provide you with that information and take the weight off your shoulders. Kind of running back to some of that question, what do rain gardens cost? Well, a good average is about $15 per square foot. So if you have a rough estimate about how big your rain garden needs to be, you can kind of calculate that out. But especially if you're willing to do some of the work yourself, you can get pretty inexpensive, sometimes less than $5 a square foot. Otherwise, if you're maybe needing to do quite a bit of work, maybe involve the local landscaper, those can get more expensive, especially things like retaining walls, outlet structures, that kind of stuff. So the $15 is a good average if you're just looking for a rough estimate. As for permeable pavement, that is also site dependent, but just a rough estimate for that, usually around $15 to $25. So $20 a square foot is usually a pretty good average. And you don't necessarily have to do your entire driveway or patio as permeable. You can only do a portion of it and still have those water quality benefits. So there are ways to try and help reduce costs that may be beneficial. And then I should also highlight that there are a handful of programs here available for residents within Black Hawk County, especially those within the targeted area, the Dry Run Creek watershed in Cedar Falls, where you can get financial assistance to implement these various types of conservation practices. So if that's something you're interested in, be sure to go ahead and contact me, reach out to our office, we can provide you with more details on the steps involved with that. But one thing I should definitely highlight that with these rain gardens, permeable pavement, you don't just, it's not kind of a one and done. There is some ongoing maintenance. And so these are detailed in that rain garden guide kind of goes into what is required. And like I said, usually it's not much more than normal landscaping. You might need to do some watering that first year, probably need to do some weeding, maybe need to add some mulch after a few years. But when they're designed properly, usually that maintenance can be greatly reduced. And with permeable pavement, there's also some maintenance, cleaning debris out from that, and that's really going to help ensure the longevity of the conservation for you. So just trying to wrap things up, if you're thinking about getting involved with some green infrastructure, I'd definitely say this is an attractive way to be greener on your landscape. And you're going to help with water quality in our community, and you're helping out our local pollinators, which are in need. And it's a good way to be a good neighbor. You're not necessarily going to solve all of our community's water problems, by doing something small on your property, but when we all come together and do it, that's where it can really have tremendous impact. And if you're interested in other ways you can get involved with conservation, there are some simple steps you can do. You don't necessarily have to install a conservation practice unless you want to. Just do some simple management practice changes where when you're applying chemicals on your yard and where you're raking your debris and stuff like that, but also contacting your local officials, letting them know you support conservation. That's a great way to get involved. Or there are lots of volunteering opportunities here in the area, and you can always learn more about ways you can get involved. So I'd highly encourage you to continue learning if you're feeling inspired by this presentation. With that, I'll wrap things up and take questions. All right, so I just saw a question pop up here asking why we should not install a rain garden in the lowest spot. So I'll just quickly go over that. So rain gardens are designed to temporarily pond water. If they have water for extended periods of time, that can be detrimental to the plants, to the soils, and also breed mosquitoes. So we only want water to be in there less than 24 hours, usually ideally 12 hours or less. And so if you do it in the lowest spot of your yard or the wettest spot of your yard, that might not necessarily be the case. So that's some of what soil investigation would help us figure out if it would be a good site for a rain garden. Okay, let's see. Let me answer a couple more questions. Is a bioswale a type of a rain garden? Yes, it is. A bioswale is a larger version of a rain garden. They have a larger a rock chamber underneath, so that usually involves about 3 feet of rock, or maybe, about 1.5 foot of rock, 1.5 foot of amended soils, and can have a larger ponding depth. So they're a deeper structure, but they can handle a much larger area, sometimes up to 2 acres if we can size them properly. Another question. How do we find out where the Dry Garden Creek watershed is located within Cedar Falls? Well, the best way to do that is to go ahead and hop on over to the Black Hawk Soil and Water Conservation District's website. We have detailed maps and information on that. Otherwise, you can go ahead and contact me, and I can tell you if your property is within the watershed. So I see a few more, but I'll maybe try and follow up with those personally, and we'll go ahead and get started with our next presentation so we stay on schedule. Give me a quick second here while I switch gears. Good evening. All right, so next we have Maria Perez with the City of Cedar Falls, and she's going to highlight the sustainability that the community has been implementing here.
Hello, my name is Maria Perez, and I want to share with you today some sustainability projects that the City of Cedar Falls is doing and how you can help. I am the stormwater specialist for the City of Cedar Falls, and please contact me if you have any questions after this. My main message for all of you is to get to know your city elected officials and city staff. The city works for all the citizens, but we need to hear from you to know what we're doing good, what we can improve on. So I really encourage you to be active this way. On the left side, you have here the 7 city council members and the mayor, Rob Green. On the right side, you have 2 of the main directors that you could contact regarding projects in the city. First one is the Director of Public Works, Chase Trac, and the second one is Stephanie Sheets, the Director of Community Services. The first project I want to talk to you about is the Resilience Plan. I invite you to go to cfresilience.com to learn more about the project. But the main goal of the project was to create actions that can help us withstand challenges, changes, and come out of those challenges in a positive way. There were 6 parts for this plan. The first one was ecology, land, and habitat, and it's how to create or restore habitat to help other organisms besides humans, right, survive and thrive here. The second one was water, weather, and urban flooding. And the main goal of this was how to manage our challenges with water, including flooding, droughts, weather events, extreme weather events. The third one, energy, mobility, and transportation, was more how to create public transportation or transportation that reduce greenhouse gases and also help us have a better community, reduce obstacles for getting to work for some people, etc. The next area we work on was community cohesion and civic services. So how can we have a community that is engaged and participates in the community itself, which is part of what I was inviting you to do by contacting elected officials and city staff. The fourth area is focused on equity, diversity, and well-being. And this is important as there's more research on how diversity is a strength for different communities. And we need to think how to include and help this diversity thrive. And the last area was jobs, business, and economy. And it's self-explanatory, but how can we make sure that our economic system in Cedar Falls is strong? We can group these different aspects in 2 main groups. One, built environment and ecology, and the second one, community and local economy. As I said, most of this plan has already started and happened. We are in February, of course, and we already have done these 4 areas where we requested for public worksheets or workshops where we requested the public input. But there's 2 upcoming opportunities for you still to provide input. So I would encourage you to go to the website, cfresilience.com, and to select get project notifications if you want to be part of the project. There's still time. The second project I want to talk about is the stormwater best management practices that we have throughout the city. I want to highlight 2 practices. The first one is the permeable alleys. We have 19 permeable alleys in the city. This is one of the beginning, the first permeable alleys. You can see it was wide. And the main thing for permeable alleys is that they have a rock reservoir under them where we can store quite a bit of water. So in a big rainfall, everything goes really fast towards the stream and rivers. But when we have permeable alleys, some of that water can be stored under the alley, and that helps slowing down that water, which has a lot of benefits. This is a picture of one of the last permeable alleys. You can see how the new design is not all impermeable alleys, but just in the center. There is a rock storage all under the area, but only the center has the alleys just because of compaction issues and weight issues. This was a better option for us. The second best management practice that you might be aware of are the bioretention cells. The main ones that people comment and add on are the ones in Waterloo Road, but there's many throughout the city you can see. And like permeable alleys, bioretention cells have a storage area under them. But besides that storage area, they also use plants, native plants usually, for creating more infiltration and helping water be going the soil. So they're great not only for water quality and water quantity, but also because they provide native habitat for pollinators, for instance. This is a picture of the last bioretention cell in Clay Street. It's a really large bioretention cell. So it was just finished last fall, and the plants were babies. We'll see which ones survive, but this will take a while to get established. The next project that the city has been doing that I want to share with you is just put in these different pollinator areas. You will see signs like this in the pollinator areas. There's a bigger one was in Pheasant Ridge, about 3.5 acres, but there's some other smaller ones in the areas, in the different parks and areas. This was done in a partnership with the Cedar Valley Monarch Sons Project, which is housed at the Cedar Valley Arboretum. And I want to share with you that they have these pollinator zones where they work with cities to establish these areas, but they also have this project called Monarch Zones. And if you go to their website, cedarvalleymonarchzones.org, you can see how they sell some kits where you can install some monarch raising stations, basically, and they increase the survival rate of monarch caterpillars to be butterflies from 5% to 80%. So 5% in the wild and up to 80% in this enclosure. So I invite you to look at them. Another area where the city has been focusing for sustainability is the walkability, how to increase the walkability. And this is a map of some areas where trails and sidewalks are planned to be added or restored. However, of course, it's expensive, so we cannot do them all at the same time. But if there's areas that you realize could use some of these, again, communicate with city staff. For instance, a specific area of concern or interest are the safe routes to school. This is an area close to Southdale Elementary School where there's no sidewalk. So how can we increase that walkability, safety walkability to school? Those are things you can always be looking for and telling our city staff about. These are the projects, 5 projects that will be done this year. And as you can see, it's over $160,000, so it's expensive, and that's why we cannot do it all at once. One more project, specific action the city did in partnership with CFU was adding this electric vehicle charging station. And it's just next to City Hall. It helps not only because, of course, it helps with reducing greenhouse gases, encourages people to own electric vehicles, but also it helps the downtown district by bringing visitors downtown. This is just a map with some different charging stations in Cedar Falls and Waterloo, so they're increasing. And what I want to let you know too is some people were complaining that the charging station was not working, but it's because they were not paying likely. So this charging station, you do have to pay for it to work. One other action or project that the city partners with the Cedar Falls Community Gardens is allowing people or having a space for community gardens. The city provides the land and provides the plowing of the gardens and water, but the community gardens organization does all the management of it. So it's a partnership. They're located in Lincoln Street, and there's 100 lots, and each lot or plat is 10 feet by 20 feet. They cost $25 to rent for the season, and you have to go to the cfcommunitygardens.org website in order to apply for one plat. This is great because it creates community, it gets you good sunny spot with good vegetables, but it's also great for wildlife. So these pictures are all from the website, and I just wanted to emphasize, since this is the conservation workshop, how you can help wildlife by growing food. And the last one project that I want to mention is our destination-based recycling stations. They are all throughout the city. The main one is the transfer station and the recycling station on State Street. But the main thing that the city does, or why we do these recycling stations instead of single stream recycling, is because you can control the quality of the recycling product better this way. So in that way, you get the waste out separated and have better product that can be sold and can make it to be recycled instead of being rejected and going back to the landfill. To help with the price and continue with this process, it's really important to only recycle what is acceptable. So I just want to encourage you to go to the website each place recycles different things. So make sure that you go and learn what you can recycle. When I asked the operators of the recycling stations they wanted you to know was pretty simple. One was, do not leave garbage on the recycling areas. They are private property, and we want to have good relationship with these landowners. So please don't do that. Don't put things that cannot be recyclable there, because that adds again to the cost. So make sure that you do that. And if you're there and you see somebody doing some of these illegal dumping, make sure you call the police. There's a non-emergency number for the police, and you can let them know what's going on. And an easy thing that they asked for was to please do flatten the cardboard boxes or corrugated boxes. They help by saving a lot of space. And then to finish my presentation, I just want to encourage you again to contact city elected officials and city staff and let them know what you think the city is doing well and what projects you think the city can look into it. Again, it's your right, but also your responsibility to be an active member of the community. If you have any questions, please let me know and I will be happy to answer them. Thank you.
All right, thanks Maria for that wonderful presentation. And if you have any questions, Maria has a couple minutes to go ahead and answer those. And yes, and I was saying, Maria, you can go ahead and contact her directly. We'll have her email posted at the end. But yep, she also included that in the chat feature as well. Okay, so maybe go ahead and get started with our next one. Give me a quick second here. So next we're going to have Sarah Kempen with the City of Waterloo highlighting rainwater harvesting.
Welcome everybody, and thank you for taking the time to listen to today's presentations. This presentation's focus is going to be all about rainwater harvesting, the benefits of having a rainwater harvesting system, and a guide to rain barrel installation. So with that, let's get started. First off, what exactly is rainwater harvesting? Well, it is a sustainable water management practice that collects water from surfaces on which rain falls and storing it for later use. These practices can be something as simple as a single rain barrel or even up to an entire system that integrates with household plumbing or irrigation. Why harvest rainwater to begin with anyways? Well, luckily for you, there are many benefits. Depending on what system you go with, it could be essentially free with only the initial cost of installation. Rainwater harvesting also helps utilities reduce peak demands during summer months, thus saving treated water for more important and appropriate water uses throughout the year. It also provides a great backup water supply for emergency situations. If you replace municipal water use with collected rainwater around your home, this will in turn reduce the amount of water that a municipality has to treat and then pump to your house. The treatment and pumping of municipally provided water requires a lot of energy. Therefore, less water to your home equals less money out of your pocket. Another category to consider are the environmental benefits. Did you know that collected rainwater happens to be an excellent source of water for plants and landscape irrigation? If you are watering your plants with treated municipal water, you are potentially introducing chemicals such as fluoride and chlorine. Rainwater also has just the right pH to promote nutrient availability. Another important consideration are the impacts water runoff from our homes is causing to our storm sewer systems. My current position with the City of Waterloo is the stormwater specialist. Therefore, it is my job to ensure there is less runoff and therefore less pollutants making their way into our storm sewer systems and ultimately out to our water bodies. The elimination of runoff can reduce contamination of surface water that carries pesticides, sediments, metals, fertilizers, chlorine, and bacteria with it. These pollutants could be the cause of many situations, some of which include messy construction sites causing sediment track out onto the streets, illegal discharging of pools, dumping of chemicals or debris into the storm inlets, blowing of grass and clippings and leaves into the gutters, washing of cars on driveways and streets, and many more. By putting these rainwater harvesting systems around our homes, we can do our part to slow down water runoff and allow for proper infiltration to avoid issues with water quality. If we are reducing the amount of water that is overbearing our storm sewer system, we can also help prevent issues with flooding of neighborhoods. It is important that we all do our part to eliminate as much runoff as possible and report people or homes where this is seen happening. Also, by reducing stormwater runoff, rainwater harvesting can reduce a storm's peak flow volume and velocity in local streets, streams, creeks, and rivers, thereby reducing the potential for stream bank erosion. So what exactly is a residential solution to rainwater harvesting that we can easily partake in? Installing a rain barrel, of course. There are many different types. They can be store-bought to look more like natural features around the home, or something as simple as a 55-gallon drum that can be converted into a rain barrel with the purchase of a converter kit from your local hardware store. The opportunities are endless, so for those interested in purchasing one, I will go over basic steps and considerations when it comes to installing a rain barrel. First things first is determine what the intended use is for the rainwater that you plan to harvest. If you plan to just water your lawn or plants that will not be used for consumption, no treatment will be necessary since any contaminants may filter into the ground. If the plan is to water plants for consumption, you may need treatment due to the composition of the roof or even coliform bacteria from any bird waste that may be up there. One option would be the use of first flush diverters. These are simple contraptions that divert the first flow of water away from a rainwater catchment system and therefore washes your roof of all the sediments and contaminants that have collected since the last rain. Next, you want to start thinking about where you would like your rain barrel to be located. Some things to consider include house aesthetics. Are you planning to decorate it? Show it off proudly. If it is a bulky item and don't want it to be seen, consider that as well when choosing a location. You also want to think about its ease of use. Consider putting it close to a garden or flowers that you'll be watering frequently. Drainage is also important because you don't want to have standing water in your yard or end up with water inside your home. The downspout overflow should be directed to a pervious area like lawn space or a rock or mulch landscaping area where it can properly infiltrate. You also want to make sure it is a minimum of 6 feet away from structures with basements. The rain barrel site should be level. Make sure it is evened out with rock or gravel and landscaping fabric underneath to even settling and keep weeds to a minimum. We recommend placing the rain barrel on a base to ensure it has the proper height to allow for a flow of gravity. Otherwise, you may need to consider a pump. Here are a few photos showing what people have used or built for their rain barrel bases. These can be made from brick, wood frames, cinder blocks, or concrete pads. Once you have your base down and the rain barrel set in place, you will need to connect it to your downspout. Options for this include either putting in a diverter off of the downspout, as shown here, or you can cut the downspout shorter and direct it straight into the rain barrel with a screen top. It all depends on what type of rain barrel you're working with. Once you have your rain barrel all put together, you can now enjoy all the benefits it has to offer. Here are some photos of rain barrels that have been decorated and painted to make it a little bit more fun. Be creative. There are some concerns and common questions that we get regarding rain barrels. One is regarding the standing water attracting mosquitoes. As long as you have screens or valves over the openings, this will prevent any adults from entering the rain barrel and laying eggs. Also ensure that you are using the rain barrel water regularly and emptying in a timely fashion to prevent stagnant water from attracting them in the first place. Another question is regarding winter storage. Due to the freezing temperatures, We highly recommend draining the rain barrel and moving it inside during the winter months to prevent any freezing and splitting. Thank you all so much for listening. I have included my contact information if there are any questions you may have. And as mentioned, please do not be afraid to reach out to your municipality if you see any sort of illicit discharge happening in your neighborhood or around town. There's always something each and every one of us can do to practice conservation in our community.
All right. So, thank you, Sarah, for putting that video together. Unfortunately, Sarah was not able to join us this evening due to a scheduling conflict. So we really appreciate her taking the time to put that together for us. But if there's any questions about rainwater harvesting, I'd be happy to take those. Melody asked if there's any incentives in our area for rain barrels, and no, there is not. But we have partnered with local municipalities over the last few years to host build your own rain barrel workshops, and the municipalities help assist and provide it at a reduced rate, which is significantly less than it would be to install a rain barrel yourself. And we had plans to host a few of those this last year. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, we really haven't been able to host in-person events like that. But hopefully this coming year, we might be able to do that, or maybe do a virtual option. So please follow up with me, and I'll be happy to keep you posted on that information where we can. Okay, without any other questions, I guess we'll go ahead and get the next one started. So next we have Shelby Weaver, who's going to talk about home energy efficiency. So let's pull that up here.
Hello, my name is Shelby Weaver. I am currently serving as a Green Iowa AmeriCorps member with the Energy and Community team here in our beloved Cedar Falls, Iowa. Today, we are going to be talking to you about home energy efficiency and the services we provide that can assist you with doing so. Who are we? We are the Green Iowa AmeriCorps Energy and Community team. Our mission statement: make Iowans more energy efficient through low-impact home weatherization, energy education, and community outreach. We operate through UNI's Center for Energy and Environmental Education. This program was founded in 2008. We provide free home energy audits and weatherization if the home qualifies. We also provide all labor and materials for the weatherization free of charge to any homeowner. Energy efficiency simply means eliminating energy waste. Did you know the average Iowa family spends around half of its annual energy bill on heating and cooling? Being energy efficient can help cut down on those costs, which will reduce your need for fossil fuels, therefore reducing your impact on greenhouse gases. In doing so, this reduces the demand for energy imports, keeping your money local. First arriving at your home, our team will conduct safety inspections. They consist of using our carbon monoxide detector, our gas sniffer, and we also checked attic insulation. Once these safety checks are approved, we move in our equipment and begin our assessment.
After the blower door test, we look at 4 main measures, including ACH, which is air changes per hour. If it is above a certain amount, we'll weatherize the house for free and test it again to see if the air leakage has improved.
Air can leak into or out of your house causes conditioned air to leave, making your air conditioner or furnace work harder. Sealing creates a controlled barrier between the inside and outside air. We use the following measures to seal any air leakages in home: caulk around windows and door frames, outlet and light switch insulators, spray foam and foam boards to fill basement cracks, holes, and bypasses. weather stripping around doorways, and so much more. Our team will also install direct energy efficiency measures to every home we visit. This includes installing up to 8 LED light bulbs, a low-flow kitchen faucet aerator, bathroom sink aerators, shower head aerator, and water heater pipe installation. You can sign up for an Energy Saver Kit on our website currently that offers these direct install measures. Now we will discuss some energy efficient tips beginning with heating. Making sure your home has adequate insulation in the attic, exterior walls, floors, basement, and crawl spaces is just as important as having tight windows because poor insulation can lead to energy loss and temperature fluctuations. We've discussed how air sealing can affect your heating cost, but how often do you change your furnace filter? Did you know that changing your furnace filter not only helps with indoor air quality, but it leads to a more energy efficient HVAC system? Regularly changing your furnace filter will put less stress on your system, therefore using less energy. If you're not sure when to change your filter, you can purchase a furnace filter whistle for approximately $3. These are also included in our Energy Saver Kit program. Always check your ductwork as well. Rips and tears are a huge waste of energy, not to mention health hazards. Another tip is to open draperies and shades on your south-facing windows during the day to let the sunlight into your home, and close the window coverings at night to retain the heat. Did you know that a 1 degree drop in the 60 to 70 degree temperature range can lower heating costs as much as 5%? We recommend purchasing a programmable thermostat so you can lower it when you are not home or sleeping. Mid-American also offers rebates on smart thermostats, which you can connect to your Wi-Fi to help you monitor and control your home's temperature. In summertime, to save money and energy, open your windows when the weather allows, but only if you don't have allergies. If you're running your air conditioner, make sure to keep windows and exterior doors sealed tight. We also suggest keeping your blinds shut to keep solar heat out. Adding deciduous trees to your outside landscape is helpful because they shed their leaves in the winter, allowing the sun in, but block the sun during the summer months. The average American family of 4 uses approximately 400 gallons of water a day. Some ways to reduce that amount are to install low-flow shower head and faucet aerators. Also, limiting the time you use these items will help reduce your use as well. For example, turning off the water while brushing or shaving can save more than 200 gallons of water per month. Also, upgrading toilets can have a tremendous impact since older toilets can use as much as 7 gallons of water to flush. How can you save money and energy with your water heater? Water heating accounts for 25% of your utility usage per month. Make sure to wrap or insulate the first foot or 2 of your water heater pipes where the majority of heat is lost. Also, putting a water heater cover will also stop heat loss. Your ideal water heater temperature is between 120 and 130 degrees Fahrenheit. Under 120 degrees, and you can get a bacterial growth that can pose health concerns, whereas above 130 degrees, you run the risk of scalding someone. Changing your light bulbs is one of the easiest ways to save energy, reduce your impact on the environment, and save money. The average household dedicates about 5% of its energy budget to lighting. You can save up to $75 per year by replacing your home's 5 most frequently used light bulbs with models that have earned the Energy Star rating. The most energy efficient bulbs available today are LEDs. LEDs output the same light as compact fluorescent lamps and incandescents, but they only use 15% of energy and last up to 4 to 8 times longer. LEDs do have a higher initial cost, but long term will save you money. Appliances, the modern day hands. We love them, but they do cost us, so let's go over some ways to maximize their efficiency. First off, always look for Energy Star appliances. You can tell if appliance is Energy Star approved by its logo. When using your dishwasher, always wash full loads. Did you know that newer dishwashers use as little as 3 gallons of water compared to 10 to 15 gallons? Opting for air drying will also save energy. To maximize your refrigerator's energy usage, set it between 35 and 38 degrees. When it comes to your laundry machine, running it when full is recommended, as well as using cold water. When using your dryer, always make sure to clean out the lint trap so it won't put extra stress on the system. And giving your clothes a good laundry hanging outside will always save money and energy as well. That's true solar power. Last home energy efficiency topic we would like to touch on is phantom energy, also known as vampire power, is when an electronic or appliance uses power even though it is not being used for its primary function. An example would be computers and printers. Stop phantom loads by literally pulling the plug, utilizing power strips, or buying low standby power items. Small changes add up. When making these small changes, you might be surprised by the impact they have. I would like to thank you all for taking the time to listen. If you have any questions or are interested in signing up for an energy audit, please head to our website, greeniowa.americorps.org, or call our office. We also would like to mention that you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for updates.
All right, thank you, Shelby, for that wonderful presentation. Do we have any questions coming through? Oh, I just see that Leah, go ahead and posted that. So if there are attendees who are interested in having a home energy audit, you can go ahead and look in the chat bar and you'll see the link for that. All right, well, if nothing else is coming through, we'll go ahead and get started with our next presentation. All right, so up next, we have Leah with Green Iowa AmeriCorps, and she's going to be highlighting a new initiative called the Garden in Every Lot, as well as the Good Neighbor Iowa. So get that shared.
Hi everyone, my name is Leah. I'm one of the Green Iowa AmeriCorps program managers.
And my name is Emily Dvorak, and I am the Good Neighbor Iowa program manager.
And we both work out of the Center for Energy and Environmental Education, sometimes shortened to the CEEE. And today we're going to talk about some of the initiatives that operate out of our center, A Garden in Every Lot, and Good Neighbor Iowa. To give a little background before we jump right into the presentation, A Garden in Every Lot was a project that was created in the summer of 2020. It was kind of the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, and a lot of people not only in our local community but also nationwide were struggling with food insecurity, fears related to going to the grocery store or local food banks. And so this project was kind of started by our Green Iowa AmeriCorps members to address some of these issues and has since then evolved into what you'll learn about in this presentation. So the mission of A Garden in Every Lot is to help improve access to fruits and vegetables by assisting individual households, community organizations, businesses, or even churches in establishing backyard gardens. As I mentioned before, COVID-19 really played a big role in highlighting and causing many of the issues we have with food insecurity and healthy eating in our local area. And through this program, we're hoping to help address some of these issues and help rekindle a culture of gardening in our community. So the program was initially piloted in the summer of 2020 by our Green Iowa AmeriCorps members from University of Northern Iowa's CEEE. The program was designed and organized and implemented over a 5-month period, in which time the members completed 6 site assessments and installed 2 full-size gardens. After the summer, staff and members from the CEEE have been working to expand the Garden in Every Lot program to include more community organizations and partnerships and make it a highly visible program in the community. This will also help us expand our gardening services and make them available to everyone, especially those that are most in need. Our partner organizations will assist with things like seedling donations, volunteer generations, marketing efforts, educational workshops, and much, much more. There are three main pillars associated with the Garden in Every Lot program. The first is local food production, which not only helps grow our community's strength, knowledge, and interest in community food production, but through local food production, we're also able to help enhance the environmental, economic, and social health of our community. The second pillar is food security. So by producing food locally, we increase access to fresh and healthy fruits and vegetables for all, including our most vulnerable populations, which is just another way we can help create healthier communities. The third and final pillar is food education. So our program aims to not only install gardens in local backyards and community lots, but also to provide education about gardening for food, healthy eating, and how to involve others in the community. We'll be working with local partner organizations to provide resources for beginning gardeners, connecting them with more experienced gardeners and even master gardeners in the community, and also create opportunities for community building. Through a Garden in Every Lot, we hope to benefit the community by strengthening it around gardening and good food. Gardening provides opportunities to get out in your community or get yourself and your kids outside in the summer. Growing your own food can also help get kids interested in eating healthier. Kids are usually a lot more interested in trying new foods if they're the ones that helped grow them. Food from local or backyard gardens is typically easier to access and is more nutritious and fresh than what you would normally get in your local grocery store. There are less pesticides and a shorter distance to travel, which reduces your carbon footprint and is also better for the environment. In partnership with local organizations in the community, we hope to provide educational opportunities to local gardeners and youth through community workshops or networking with other gardeners in the area to help create a culture around local food while also helping reduce our environmental impact. Members from our Green Iowa AmeriCorps team will take up the brunt of the initial work. Members are trained to assess potential garden sites, checking things like sunlight access, soil testing, access to water. And once a site has been decided on and assessed, we'll work with homeowners and community leaders to create a garden layout and decide what we can grow. Members will then schedule a time to come back with their team and tools ready to rip up some sod and turn your drab yard into a fab garden in no time. On our website, we'll have resources to help connect those in the community with locations they can rent tools, find seeds, learn more about gardening, pest management, nutrition, cooking, and much more. The program is currently open for applications, whether you're interested in having a garden installed at your home, you're interested in becoming a partner to help with educational events or materials, or you're interested in becoming a local ambassador in your community to help spread the word. You can also reach out to us with any questions you may have. We're planning on beginning our site assessments April 1st and garden installations following soon after that. We're also planning to add various educational resources and opportunities on our website at gardeneverylot.org coming this spring, so stay tuned for that. And of course I have our information on the next slide. So if you're interested in learning more or becoming a partner, you can contact us at uNILocalFood@gmail.com. Our phone number's on there as well, and then just a link to our website there. And I'll be available for questions at the end of this presentation as well. So now I will pass this off to Emily, who will tell us a little bit more about Good Neighbor Iowa.
Thanks, Leah. Yeah, getting right into it with Good Neighbor Iowa. We are a statewide public health education initiative managed in partnership with the UNI Center for Energy and Environmental Education. And our program extends across the state of Iowa by the work of not only myself as staff, but other staff members here at the CEEE, as well as 2 student fellows from UNI. And recently we have also launched a local champion network, which was an exciting addition to our program. And local champions are residents across Iowa and organizations across Iowa who partner with us to share our mission. Our mission is to reduce unnecessary urban pesticide use and transform lawn culture to encourage an appreciation of diverse lawns as a way to protect child health, water quality, pets, pollinators, and biodiversity. So we're really trying to get people to manage their lawns without using pesticides as a way to primarily protect child health, but also those other environmental factors as well. Our program began back in 2017 through a partnership with a class at UNI, and that class actually was the group to come up with our original marketing campaign, all of the original materials and the signs that you maybe see, also the original website design. And since 2017, we have grown to over 1,600 good neighbors which are residents, childcare centers, parks, school districts, and other various businesses that have pledged to not use pesticides in their lawn care management. So if you're currently not using pesticides on your lawn, or if you would like to learn more about how to transition away from that, you can always email us or give us a phone call. Also, our website, goodneighboriowa.org, has a lot of great resources that can help you, and also shows the evidence of harm that our program is based off of. Also, check us out on Facebook. That is where we primarily are connecting with good neighbors and people who are always looking to learn more. So that's a little bit about our programs, and if anyone has questions, we are happy to take those now.
All right, thanks so much, Emily and Leah, for putting that video together. Does a great job highlighting just simple steps that folks can do in their own backyard to be a little bit greener and have those larger impacts. So I've seen a little bit of chat going on there. Not sure if we have any other questions popping up, but if you do have them, feel free to chat, put those in the chat feature, and Emily and Leah can go ahead and follow up with you there. Okay, we're getting our next presentation set up, and this will be from another Green Iowa AmeriCorps, Jordan, with the Land and Water Stewards AmeriCorps, and he is going to highlight some backyard wildlife habitat that you can get involved with. So let's get that screen shared up.
Hello everyone, my name is Jordan Evans and I am an outreach coordinator with Green Iowa AmeriCorps here in Cedar Falls. If you don't know about Green Iowa AmeriCorps, we are a conservation-minded organization that focuses in environmental education and direct service work, including prairie burns, water quality testing, invasive species removal, and anything that will help our community be better. And a little bit about me is I graduated with environmental science degree and a earth science minor from the University of Northern Iowa in May of 2019, and soon after that I started as a summer member with Green Iowa AmeriCorps, eventually moving on to the full-time job that I am currently in. In my presentation today, I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk to you about backyard wildlife habitat. As many of you may know, wildlife needs our help. As human activity expands and the population is ever growing, increased urbanization has caused a huge problem for local wildlife. Backyard wildlife habitat is a good mitigation strategy to overcome the issues that come with destruction of wildlife habitat and increased urbanization. In Iowa, some of the local wildlife habitat that we can help bring back will help things like pollinators such as bees, birds, bats, owls, ducks, etc. Another fact about me is I am a hobbyist woodworker in my spare time, so whenever I get a chance to bring in my hobbies with my work, I always take advantage. The first thing that I will talk about in this presentation is what a bat box is. First off, as many of you may know, bats are very crucial to human existence. Each night, bats can eat up to 1,200 insects per hour, meaning that they're a very important insecticide when it comes to eating mosquitoes, beetles, and moths. One bat conservation group estimates their value to agriculture to be up to $53 billion a year of money saved for pesticides. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not the biggest fan of mosquitoes. I don't really think anybody is. So an easy way to, if you have a mosquito problem at your home or on your farm or whatnot, a great way to mitigate the mosquito problem is to install a bat box. Along with their help of getting rid of pests, they are also essential pollinators and seed dispersers. Without bats, we wouldn't have avocados, chocolate, or tequila. Not only are bat boxes beneficial to humans, but they're also very beneficial to bats, as the bat populations have been rapidly declining over the last 2 or 3 decades due to increased urbanization, deforestation that gets rid of their habitat, and also white nose syndrome. If you ever have been nearby or visited a Iowa cave system, such as the Makokata Caves, you may have been already told about white nose syndrome. If you haven't, white nose syndrome is a disease that has been affecting North American bats for a while now. It is caused by a fungus that ingests the bat skin and is also very present on its nose, and it can ruin its respiratory system. So, to help combat declining bat populations, why not install a bat box in your backyard? Each bat box that you can install can house colonies from around 50 to 300 bats, depending on the size of the bat box that you build. The picture on the left there is a view from the bottom side of a bat box, seeing the small space that these bats roost in to stay warm at night when not hunting. The picture in the middle is what a regular bat box looks like once it's hung on a tree, and the picture on the right is, I believe, a small or a little brown bat, which is one of the most native bats to Iowa. When it comes to building your bat box, there are some specifications that you must keep in mind. Number one is you have to use natural lumber and not treated lumber. Treated lumber can cause some health issues to the bats if that chemical that it's treated with runs out and affects them. So it's best to get naturally weather-resistant wood like pine, cedar, or oak. As far as size, most bat experts recommend a bat box be at least 18 inches wide and 24 inches tall. In the previous slide, you saw in that picture on the left where the bats were hanging out, those are called roost partitions, and the experts recommend that those must be 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch deep for most Iowa species. In order for your bat box to last a long time, you must also add a roof to lessen deterioration due to weather effects. Once you have finished building your bat box and are ready to put it up to help attract bats, you are probably going to wonder where you're supposed to hang it. You should hang your bat box on a tree, a wooden pole, or the side of a barn or shed. The most important thing is that it is secure and won't shake in the wind and rain. Another important aspect is it must be 10 feet above the ground, as predators would otherwise try to attack the bats inside. You should also put your bat box within a 1/4 mile at least of a water source, like a creek or a small pond. This method is preferable but not completely necessary. It is just used as a water source for the bats. It is also recommended that you put your bat box in a relatively open area that faces south or south-southeast so it receives at least 7 hours of direct sunlight. You will want your bat box amongst some trees, but it is not to be shaded by the trees, so if the bat box doesn't get enough sun, that can become a big problem. Lack of sunlight is especially important in the winter. If it's too shaded during the winter, the bats can eventually freeze inside if it's also not properly insulated enough. If you're interested in building your own bat box, I'm sure you're going to want a little more specific instruction than what I've given you today. You can go ahead and look on our YouTube channel at Green Iowa AmeriCorps Official, where we have a step-by-step guide on how to build your own bat box. The next little woodworking project that you can do to help attract wildlife to your backyard is make a bee hotel. I'm sure everyone here knows just how important bees are to our population and the circle of life. But a lot of people might not know how important pollinators they are. Bees perform about 80% of the world's population, which I found just to be absolutely wild. That's such a high number. They're very important for pollination of nuts, fruits, and vegetables all over the world. But locally, they can help you and your garden for pollination by helping your backyard and your vegetable garden flower. Well, that was a mess of a sentence. I was trying to say that they can help your flower and vegetable gardens bloom, but I couldn't delete that section of this video, otherwise I would have had to start completely over. Sorry. Along with bats, bee populations have also been in extremely rapid decline, which I'm sure most of you have heard of as it's gotten a lot of media coverage over the last few years. They've had up to a 60% decline in the US since 1947 due to things like insecticide blowover from fields, loss of habitat, air pollution, and increased drought due to climate change. Most people, when they think of bees, think of bumblebees or honeybees, but that's not what bee hotels are meant for, as those bees typically live in hives with their own colonies. Bee hotels are meant for solitary bees, meaning bees that live alone. Since they aren't protecting a hive, solitary bees are much less likely to sting you, so it's actually a relatively safe practice to put a bee hotel in your backyard. Some of the species of solitary bees include red mason bees and leafcutter bees. At least those are the most common that you can find in Iowa. Solitary bees, when not nesting in a bee hotel, naturally nest in holes in the ground, fallen trees, hollow stems of dead plants, or even old beetle holes from the side of a tree. When those homes aren't present, typically in a well-manicured lawn or something, bee hotels provide that space. Most bee hotels are just a box with an open face and a roof, like the one you can see on your right here that we made just this last week. For nesting material, you can include a combination of logs with holes drilled into it, 2x4s with more holes drilled into it, and also we used bamboo reeds that we found from Menards with slightly different size holes drilled into them as well. Whatever basically you can use to tightly fill up your box. Your bee hotel can end up being any size you really want. They recommend not doing too big because too big of a bee hotel can have a large population in it, and that can just become a smorgasbord for predators, which can become a big problem as well. As far as hole sizes for each nesting tube, they should be around 1/8 of an inch wide in diameter to 1/2 inch wide in diameter, as solitary bees are very much smaller. That's not the way you say that. Solitary bees are quite smaller than your natural bumblebee or honeybee. By the way, the bee hotel that you can see on your right there is actually the door prize that we provided for this community conservation workshop. You may be wondering, what exactly are the bees doing in these nesting tubes? Well, on top of just nesting in them overnight, they also use them to lay their young. In the bottom right picture, we have a life cycle of what bees do in bee hotels. The first picture on the top there is bees emerging in the early spring from the previous summer. Soon after that, in late spring or early summer, bees procreate. After that, the female bee seeks out a cavity to use as a nest. Then, once they find that nest, the female divides each nest into sections with mud, leaving one larvae and a supply of pollen for each one, segmenting it into either 4 or 5 depending on how long the nest is. The larvae, once hatched, eat those pollen provisions throughout the summer and fall, and pupate and overwinter until the next spring, and then the cycle starts all over again. You can tell if a bee has used one of your nesting tubes because it'll be capped with mud at the end, like you can see in the upper right-hand picture. Once one of your tubes is filled, you can remove it from your bee hotel and replace it and put it in an emergence box. That way the bees can safely emerge next spring without being indoors or in a dangerous location. When it comes to hanging your bee hotel, good places to hang it are near a pollen source like a flowering garden, a flowering tree like a tulip tree, or especially in a prairie where there are a bunch of different kinds of flowering plants. You also want to put it somewhere secure, like you put the bat house on the side of a building or on a pole or on a tree, not just hung by twine typically. You want it 4 to 5 feet above the ground so it's still in reach so you can monitor it and replace things as needed. You'll want it away from any pesticide use, as any pesticide blowover can be detrimental to your bee population. And you'll also want to keep it away from any wasps or other predator insect nests, as bees are often common prey for these kind of predators. An important aspect of having a bee hotel is keeping maintenance of it, starting in the early spring. You'll want to bring it inside in the late fall, as if you keep it over winter, that can cause big damage to your bee hotel. You want to hang your bee hotel in early spring, that way the bees that were laid the previous summer have a chance to emerge in the early spring. After you've brought your bee hotel inside in late fall, you can take out all of the used cavities and put them in a cardboard box with a hole in one side or on the top. This will be called your emergence box. Place your emergence box in a garage or shed and then take that box outside in spring so the overwintering bees can leave when they are ready. You can clean out or replace used cavities with a pipe cleaner or a Q-tip and a bleach solution. Failure to do so can lead to disease and harmful pests hurting your bee population. A harmful pest typically that causes a problem in bee hotels is a mite. If you are interested in seeing the process of building a bee hotel like the one that I showed you just a little bit earlier, we will be putting up a YouTube video about that soon on our YouTube channel, Green Iowa AmeriCorps Official, so keep a lookout for that. Another woodworking project that you can take on is building an owl box. Just like bats, owls are a great natural pesticide or a rodenticide because they eat voles, large insects, mice, and other things that can become problems to households. Just like the previous two species that I've talked about, owl populations have also been plummeting for 40 years due to deforestation. Some of the common owls that you will see in Iowa that owl boxes can help are your barn owl, which is in the top right, the barred owl, which is on the bottom, and the screech owl, which is typically my favorite owl. Some basic specifications when it comes to building an owl box is to not hang your owl box if you use rodenticide at all on your property, as rodenticide can build up in an owl's circulatory system and eventually kill the owl. When building the owl box, it's basically like building a large birdhouse. The only important thing is that you have the entry hole not too low, or otherwise the baby owls that will eventually be laid there could jump out before they're ready to fly and plummet to their death. The entry hole size depends on the species you are trying to target, like the 3 that I showed you earlier. You also want to hang your box 12 foot to 15 foot above the ground to keep it away from predators. Again, keep a lookout on our YouTube, Green Iowa AmeriCorps Official, for a how to build your owl box video in the coming months. If you don't want to attract something as large as an owl, you can try just building a regular sized birdhouse, as birds are great pollinators, they eat pests, and they also eat seeds of weeds, which reduces a lot of gardening problems. Birdhouses act as a habitat replacement that help native bird species like a cardinal, a red-headed woodpecker, or our state bird, the goldfinch. Birdhouses can be pretty much made out of anything, but some simple specifications is that they should not be made of untreated lumber, should be made of untreated lumber, not treated lumber. And they should have a sloped, removable roof, and they be well insulated with drainage holes. If you don't have much of an inclination towards woodworking or have the facilities, you can plant a wildlife garden. A wildlife garden includes features such as flowering plants for pollinators that invite bees, butterflies, birds, and some of those plants can be like milkweed, black-eyed Susan, asters, spotted Joe pieweed, and sunflowers. You can add in bird baths that serve as a water source for not only birds but also small pollinators. You can add fruit trees and bushes, small pools or ponds that invite frogs and turtles, like in the bottom right picture. Those are typically my favorite. You can add shrubs, trees, and tall grasses for protection against predators. You can add bird feeders to attract the native bird species. And you can also put in any of the previous projects that I've talked about during this presentation to attract those type of species as well. It's important, again, that you do not use pesticides and that try to avoid straight edges to your garden, as straight edges provide no protection from predators, where curved edges do. If you have multiple acres to work with, I highly recommend implementing a backyard prairie. Prairies used to be all over Iowa, but now they're, I believe, 1/10 of 1% of prairie is now still in Iowa. Prairies are beneficial to pollinators. They're good for stormwater runoff, soil quality. They help native species, and they also store carbon. Depending on the size of prairie you want, this can be a little expensive, but there are different options for you, as prairies can be planted by seed or by plant transplant. Some prairie maintenance includes burning your prairie every 2 to 4 years to control invasive species and encourage native ones. Another large project that you can undertake is adding a whole pond to your backyard. Ponds provide habitat for frogs, toads, turtles, fish, bugs, water-based mammals, and birds. Ponds are great for outdoor recreation such as fishing, kayaking, canoeing, and swimming. Ponds also help with water conservation by being a water source, so you don't have to hook up your hose to water your garden. You can just grab a bucket of water and put it in your, what's the name? A watering can. That's what I was trying to think of. Obviously, this project is probably going to cost the most as it's a very large project to undertake, but it's also going to be the most beneficial to you and your backyard if you have the space for it. So I highly recommend adding a pond if you can. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
All right, that was a great presentation, Jordan, and I see that there was a lot of chat going on in there. A lot of people were asking their questions during the presentation. So looks like Jordan was doing a great job keeping up on that. Okay, so yeah, looks like that's working well. So yes, if you have more questions, feel free to go ahead, put those in the chat, and yep, Jordan will follow up with you on that. And up next, we have Laura with the Tallgrass Prairie Center, and she's going to be highlighting native prairie plants, specifically focusing on plant selection, which is a very important topic. So we'll go ahead and let Laura take it away.
Okay, I'm really happy to be talking with you this evening, and I'm actually live, so I won't be able to address your questions in the chat, but I hope we have some time after the presentation to do so. My contact information will also be shared at the end of this. So anyway, I'll get started. I'm Laura Walter. I'm the Plant Materials Program Manager at UNI's Tallgrass Prairie Center. And I'm really happy to be here tonight to introduce you to some of my favorite prairie plants for home gardens. I think this fits so nicely. Kudos to Josh for organizing things the way that he did, because it follows really well after the gardening initiative and the backyard wildlife habitat presentations. We're going to start at this presentation with a little background on tallgrass prairies, why they're important, and why you should have prairie plants at home too. Visitors to our state probably know us best as the corn state, and they would not be wrong. But one big reason why we're so good at growing crops is that we used to be the prairie state. Iowa lies in the heart of the tallgrass prairie region, and it's no accident that we have some of the best soils in the world. Deep-rooted, long-lived prairie plants held soil in place and built up its fertility. They helped rain and snow soak into the soil like a sponge. Their leaves, stems, and flowers fed wildlife, which in turn allowed human cultures to flourish. 19th century settlers found abundant forage and hay for domestic livestock and deep, rich soil to plow for planting crops. Within a few generations of settlement, nearly all Iowa prairie had been converted to cropland. And Jordan, you got your percentage right. Only small scattered remnants remain, except in the Luss Hills of far west Iowa. Thankfully, we do have these remnants to show us what we've lost, and they also provide us the seed to potentially bring it back. Planting prairie along roadsides, on farms and parks, and even your own garden helps return the benefits of prairie to our land and people. The Tallgrass Prairie Center on the west end of the UNI campus is dedicated to empowering people like you to restore resilient, diverse tallgrass prairie. We can't achieve this work on our own, and so we were very grateful to the numerous partners and funders who help us to do our work. The TPC has 4 main programs: research and restoration, plant materials, prairie on farms, and Iowa roadside management. I manage the plant materials program. We help to make diverse Iowa source native seed available for planting prairies. We start with small collections of seed from remnant prairies. We grow that seed into plants and we harvest their seed. Then native plant producers can use our seed to start larger production fields. They produce enough seed to plant thousands of acres per year. In the bottom right image, you can see a pallet full of bags of seed that will be used to plant prairie along county roads across Iowa. The yellow tag on each bag means that this seed can be traced back to Iowa remnant prairies. One thing we don't do at the TPC is sell seed to the public, but our website has a list of Iowa businesses who sell seed or planting services. Even if you don't have a lot of land, you can bring the benefits of prairie into your neighborhood. My own kids, two of whom are pictured here, grew up with prairie in our backyard, and they learned from experiences like raising that monarch butterfly that you can see on the butterfly milkweed in the picture. When given appropriate light and moisture levels, native plants are well adapted to local conditions and anything that Iowa throws at them, and they need little care. They provide habitat for songbirds and pollinators like this brown-belted bumblebee and help preserve our state's heritage and biodiversity. By the way, if you need a tongue twister, try saying brown-belted bumblebee several times quickly. So what is a native plant? It's one that occurs in wild places like prairies, wetlands, and woodlands without having been planted by colonizing people. Native plants are fundamental parts of the web of relationships among living things in our native ecosystems. So how can you learn which plants are native to our area? Websites like Iowa Prairie Plants and field guides like Wildflowers of the Tallgrass Prairie by Runkle and Rusa are key resources you can use. Watch out for the popular meadow in a can mixes from big box stores or websites. Many of the plants in these mixes are not native or long-lived and won't provide the same benefits as carefully chosen native plants, however pretty they may be. And there are so many wonderful native plants to choose from. I picked out a few, in finger quotes, of my favorites for you. Each slide that follows here provides important information for plant selection, like their blooming time, sun exposure, soil moisture, and the plant height. You'll get to see the colors from the pictures. All of these species are suitable for full sun and medium moisture soils. I didn't include any wetland or woodland plants or grasses. Maybe those are for future presentations. Even so, this list is still long, so we better get going. We're going to start with prairie plants that flower in late spring to early summer and then continue through the seasons to the first frost of fall. Wild geranium provides early color in the prairie garden and is visited by early emerging wild bees. This is a highly adaptable plant that doesn't get too tall. It has an interesting way of moving its seeds. Each one is attached to its own mini catapult. You can see those in that picture in the bottom left. If you don't want to have wild geranium coming up all over your garden, I recommend trimming off the seed heads before they burst. The cheery yellow of golden alexanders is a welcome sign of spring in the prairie garden, accented here by a single purple spiderwort flower. This species is related to garden plants like dill, parsley, and carrots, and like them plays host to black swallowtail caterpillars. Other butterflies, bees, and beetles also appreciate its pollen and nectar. Golden alexanders, though, is another plant that happily spreads by seeds. The pure white flowers of Canada anemone are perfect reflectors of the early summer sunlight. I think this ebony jewel-winged damselfly was taking advantage of the contrast to show off his colors. Canada anemone can grow in varying light conditions. It spreads underground to fill in around larger plants, but only gets about a foot tall itself. The brilliant blue and purple of spiderwort adds to our spring prairie palette. Each individual flower lasts a day, but the plants keep blooming for several weeks. Little metallic green bees and hoverflies come to dine on the spiderwort pollen, and sometimes you'll find an actual spider, a jumping spider, waiting for those pollinators within the blooms of spiderwort. If you have the space for it, white wild indigo makes a stunning garden plant. The shoots that come up in May look like asparagus at first, but then spread out into a finely branched leafy canopy. The spikes of white pea-like flowers can be over a foot long each and mature into puffy green pods that turn pewter colored in the fall and rattle when you shake them. Foxglove beard tongue has tubular flowers that are just the right width for the first set of bumblebee workers of the summer to squeeze into. This species tolerates a range of light and moisture conditions in my gardens. Moving into high summer, and the hairy wild petunia, which is no relation to garden petunias, starts to bloom. Saying that it gets 1 foot tall is generous. It makes a nice edging to a rock garden, perennial border, or path. And it's fun to collect seeds of this species. Cut the stalks in late fall and put them in a paper bag to dry. Be sure to close the top of the bag. As the seed pods dry, listen for the pops as the seeds explode out and hit the bag. Butterfly milkweed grabs attention with its eye-popping orange flowers. One odd thing about butterfly milkweed is that it doesn't have the milky sap that gives milkweeds their name. If you want to help monarch butterflies, it's great to plant this and other milkweed species to provide for multiple generations of caterpillars through the summer. Oops, I just went one too far. Here we go. Pale purple coneflower deserves a little time. It's a cousin of the beefier purple coneflower that's commonly planted in perennial gardens. I think that this true Iowa native is more graceful looking, but it's not delicate either. The dead stems of this species are one place where we've found bee nests, like the ones that Jordan described in his talk. Leaving dead stalks standing over the winter is good for both winter interest in the garden and helping bees. If you're looking for a unique accent plant that lasts for a long time, plant Rattlesnake Master. It flowers for most of the summer, and the mature seed heads are equally beautiful in winter against the snow. This lovely plant goes by more than one name. Bee balm makes sense to me since bumblebees love these flowers, but butterflies like them too. As a typical member of the mint family, bee balm also has scented leaves. It's a fairly tall plant that does well toward the back of a perennial border. Wild quinine is another plant with long-lasting flowers. The seed heads turn the color of tarnished silver and provide fall and winter interest. This one's abundant at the Darrell Smith Prairie in Cedar Falls, it's on the UNI campus actually. And right now it looks just stunning against the snow. With late summer and fall, we enter the UNI Panther Prairie season, dominated by purple and gold flowers. Sweet Black-Eyed Susan is one of those long-lived late summer wildflowers. Meadow Blazing Star is known as the absolute monarch magnet. Migrating monarchs cluster on its purple flower heads, guzzling sugar nectar to fuel their long flight to Mexico. There are several species of goldenrods in our area, and stiff goldenrod is one of my favorites. It has flat-topped flower clusters that are brilliant yellow and visited by butterflies, beetles, and bees. Goldenrods are often blamed for allergies unfairly because they bloom at the same time as ragweed. In late fall and early winter, goldfinches pick apart the fluffy seed heads and eat the seeds. Two of the native aster species that bloom in fall are shown here. They provide important late season nectar for migrating monarchs, as well as new bumblebee queens that need to fatten up for hibernation. Notice that aromatic aster is only about 2 feet tall and would be good at the edge of your prairie border, whereas New England aster is taller and would do well at the back. Showy goldenrod is one of the last prairie species to bloom. It provides an all-you-can-eat pollen and nectar buffet for bumblebees, monarch butterflies, and numerous other important insects. It forms robust clumps and reaches up to 5 feet depending on local conditions, so give it plenty of space and sunshine. If you have a big garden, you could try all of my favorite prairie plants, but even in a small patch, plant a few of the ones that caught your eye. Maybe stick with the purple and gold for your panther colors. You'll be doing something beneficial and beautiful for yourself and your neighborhood. To learn more about the Tallgrass Prairie Center, native seed and plant sources, and native plant gardening, check out these resources. Thanks so much for your attention. If you have questions about native prairie plants for your home garden, please feel free to ask tonight or contact me through the information that Josh is going to share.
All right, thanks so much, Laura. That was fantastic and very beautiful pictures. That's probably my favorite thing about your presentation.
Thanks so much. All of the pictures were from either my work here at the Tallgrass Prairie Center or my backyard or prairie explorations around town. Any questions?
Well, it looks like folks are enjoying it. Again, thank yous and gratitude there. So yeah. Go ahead and type those in, any questions you might have.
Wow, I must have answered all the questions through the talk, but yeah. Oh, recommendations for where to find native seeds. Yeah, I would say look for Iowa native seed growers. We have a number of folks across Iowa who produce native seeds, and many of them actually produce Iowa source native plants. A lot of them have websites, and those are also great places to find information about how to grow native plants. One place where I found some smaller native seed growing businesses that I didn't even know about before was by following some Prairie sites on Instagram, and so social media can even help you to find those. There is a list of seed and service providers also on the Tallgrass Prairie Center webpage, and that was one of the links that I showed in my talk. But I'd be happy if you give me an email, I can send you a direct link to that. Oh, the book and authors of the book that I recommended, that's Wildflowers of the Tallgrass Prairie. It's by Runkel and Rusa, R-U-N-K-E-L and R-O-O-S-A. It's published by University of Iowa Press. So if you go to their website, I'm sure you'll find it. There's a series of those books. There's one for wetlands and one for woodlands as well. And they're excellent books with beautiful photographs and really interesting information about all the plant species. Seed Savers and Decorah, I do think they have some native plants. It would be interesting to ask them about, where the original seed sources for those plants came from, to see if they were actually sourced from Iowa remnant prairies. That's always a great question to ask your native seed providers to find out if you're getting real Iowa genetics and heritage in your plantings. Best time of year to convert turf to prairie? That's a great question. It takes some time to prepare a site for the prairie plants. Usually that involves killing off the turf. My favorite way is to smother it. That can be done with black plastic or layers of cardboard and other mulch materials, and that takes some time. So you would need to devote at least several weeks to that process, depending on the time of year, and preferably months. Nurseries that provide native plant, yes, you can find native plant nurseries that do provide plants in pots or plugs. I find for home gardening especially, it's great to start with seedlings or plants, because that helps you to identify them so that you don't accidentally weed them out. If you start with seeds, it's helpful when you're getting started to start them in pots yourself, so that you can recognize the seedlings and get them in the places where you want them. What if you can't burn your prairie? You can cut and remove the material. Cedar Falls, for instance, does allow prairie burning under certain situations if you contact the fire department in advance, but you'd need to double check on that. If you can't burn it, clip it, rake it, take it to the compost facility or compost it yourself, or use it as mulch in your garden. I've done that before, and I end up with interesting native weeds. Recommendations for shady woodlands area might be a really great topic for another time, but two of the species that I showed tonight, the Canada anemone and the wild geranium, also do well in part to even full shade. I think I answered the questions, and
great job. Yep, you nailed them all. So yes, if you have more questions, go ahead and put those in the chat and we'll follow up with them. We'll go ahead and get our next speaker started. Let's pull this up here. All right, so we have Tammy with Waste Trac is going to be talking about minimizing waste and backyard composting. So let Tammy take it away here.
Hello everyone, my name is Tammy Turner and I'm part of the Waste Trac education team. I'm happy to share slides about minimizing waste and tips for backyard composting. The Waste Trac education team is a partnership between Blackhawk County Solid Waste Management Commission and Blackhawk County Conservation Board. We're a two-person outreach team. We give free solid waste education programs, landfill tours, have an assortment of social media out there, newsletters, brochures, and a website. And on our website, we have lots of resources. So if you're wanting to know anything about the landfill, hours of operation, rules and regulations, fees, covered loads policy, information's on there. We do have information about collection in my town. Most garbage and recycling is done at the city level, so we have links to each of the cities, so you can learn more about what your city accepts for recycling and different rules and regulations. We do have a section on other materials, so if you have questions about household toxins, medication and sharps, electronics, construction demolition, food waste and composting, there's lots of resources on that page as well. We have a whole section for businesses. And our Waste Trac education team has a whole education page. So we have a listing of all the programs we do starting at age 4 up through seniors. We list our volunteer opportunities, information about event recycling, which you may have seen at Live to 9 or Iowa Irish Fest, how to green your school, and lots of resources for youth leaders and teachers. So our Waste Trac website is wastetrac.org, and we do have a frequently asked questions page that is very helpful for people. So you can kind of just plunk in there, what do I do with, and then whatever you're looking for, and it's kind of a helpful resource. So our Blackhawk County sanitary landfill takes about 177,000 tons of garbage per year. So as a solid waste agency, we want to look at this waste hierarchy and say we want to start at the top, and we want to look at the things that are going to make the biggest or highest impact, and that's going to be avoiding waste in the first place, reducing waste, and then reuse, recycle, next recover, and very last, sending all those materials to the landfill, and that would be our least preferred, and that has the least impact as well. So as far as reuse goes, we really encourage people to think about having garage sales, giving items to a charity if they are still usable. Even building materials can be donated to Habitat for Humanity, to their restore. And there's lots of different things online, such as like Facebook Marketplace, freecycle.org. So there's a variety of different things that can help you reuse materials. We do encourage people to recycle, and in Blackhawk County, each city government determines the programs that they provide for their citizens. As a whole, just kind of generality, paper items should be clean and dry, and your containers, such as your steel cans, your glass, your plastics, should be rinsed clean. And be sure you check with your city about what they will and will not accept in their recycling bins, because it is customized to each city, and it may kind of vary if you live in one community and you move to another one. In Cedar Falls, they have a recycling center on State Street, just one block off of Main Street, and they also have recycling stations spread out through the community. In Waterloo, they have 2 programs as well, but theirs is a voluntary curbside program, and then there's also 4 recycling stations that are spread out through the community. And one of the projects that we work with each city is a hazardous materials drop-off event. And usually at this time we would have a date for you, but our location and date is to be determined. Usually in the spring we will host that with the city of Waterloo. So check back on our Waste Trac on our spring drop-off page as it gets a little bit closer, and then we'll be able to announce where and when that is going to take place for people to bring their household hazardous materials from Blackhawk County. So the rest of the program, we wanted to kind of concentrate on backyard composting. And it ties into garbage. Every 6 years or so, the Iowa DNR conducts the Iowa statewide waste characterization study to find out what's in Iowa's garbage. If you look at the chart, you can kind of see from 2005 until 2017, paper, which includes cardboard in their study, has kind of trended down from 33% down to 25.5%, but plastic has trended up, and our food waste has trended up from 10.6 to 20.0. So if we add up our paper waste at 25.5% and our food waste at 20%, composting can address nearly 46% of the waste stream in Iowa. So that's why we really want to encourage families to start doing backyard composting if they're able to do that. So food waste, in 1 year, an average American household disposes of 290 pounds of food. Some of it goes to waste, some of it gets expired in the refrigerator. There are lots of great reasons to compost. We have a few here on the slide. Composting, it improves plant growth. It reduces erosion. It allows the soil to retain more of the water. It enhances fertility. It reduces waste that's landfilled or burned. It benefits soil structure. It allows soil to retain more nutrients. It stores carbon in the soil to protect the climate. It builds community resilience and power. It's something everyone can do. Plus, composting saves money, so your homemade compost is free. You don't have to buy it at the garden center anymore. And the compost is a chemical-free fertilizer for your yard or garden. So compost is a recipe. So compost has ingredients. So microorganisms break down the organic matter through aerobic respiration. Oxygen is obtained through churning of the pile. Water is required by the microorganisms to live and multiply. And temperatures within the piles can reach 100 to 150 degrees. A lot of people think that composting is very, very complicated, but really there's just 3 keys to a happy compost pile. So you need a balance of nitrogen and carbon, enough water, and intern it. There's lots of different composting systems out there. So you can spend $10, you can spend hundreds of dollars. You can be real simple with a snow fence or a woven wire bin. You could use old cinder blocks to kind of contain your pile. You could invest in some wood and make a multi-bin system. There's lots of one-bin systems out there, or a lot of gardeners like the tumblers. So a couple different options there. So you can also just kind of pile it up so you can kind of clear a spot and make sure you keep it moist enough, and it'll turn to compost. Most people like it to look a little bit neater, so a lot of people like the 3-bin system. So you'll have 1 bin that is your storage pile. Your 2nd bin is where you're working it, so it's partially decomposed. And then the 3rd bin, it has turned to compost and it is ready to use. For yards that are maybe a little bit smaller, a composting bin might be the way to go. So there's lots of commercial ones out there, or ones that you can even make yourself. And then for people who want fast compost, a lot of gardeners are really happy with tumblers. I would say you need to have a water source close by, and then you'll want to add water because it's not on the ground. So tumblers is a great way to get a batch of compost really fast. So location, location, location. So you don't want to have full sun or full shade. You kind of want it part sun, part shade. You want to place it on a regular route near your garage or near your garden. It's in the back 40, forget about it, you're not going to use it. The bins need to be on the ground. If you place them on hard surfaces or concrete or like your patio, they will tend to puddle and create an odor. So in the corner of the garden or in a flower bed is an ideal place. You want to stay away from large trees and neighbors. The large trees is because the trees can sometimes steal the nutrients from the compost. And then when you go to spread the compost on the garden, the trees have already taken all that good stuff. And then please be conscious of where you're putting your compost bin. If it's near your privacy fence or near a border with your neighbor, just kind of be conscious of that. You don't want to place it right where they have like a patio. So we want to be neighborly in where we place our compost bins. And we want to make sure we give it enough air circulation around the bin. You don't want to pin it in. As far as what to compost, there's a lot of things from the yard and the kitchen that can go in your compost pile. So the things that are going to give greens or nitrogen to your pile are going to be things on the left there in green. So it's going to be like your fruit and vegetable scraps, your grass clippings, your coffee grounds, and those things need to be dealt with right away. You can't really stockpile those things. They kind of need to go in the bin right away. And then you need to balance it with brown. So maybe 2/3 of what you put in your bin really need to be things that are high in carbon. And they're going to be things like your leaves, your sawdust, even shredded paper products like your cardboard, your pizza boxes, your napkins, fast food products, things like that. And those things can be stockpiled. So your leaves or your paper products you can shred or just put in a bag, store them in the garage, and then put them into your bin as needed. So I always tell people to think of a 5-gallon bucket 1/3 needs to be greens, 2/3 needs to be browns. So if you're doing a lot of cooking or go to the farmer's market a lot and you have lots and lots of fruit and veggie peels, you do need to make sure that you are balancing that with enough like sawdust or leaves or paper products. Some items to avoid, some because they'll change the pH, some because they're going to give you an odor, some will attract rodents to your yard. So you'll want to keep meat and bones, dairy products out of there. You need to be careful with some of like the ashes and barbecue charcoal. You don't want to put glossy paper like your magazines in there because there's a coating on it and it's harder for them to break down. You want to be careful with diseased plants, weeds that have gone to seed, and also walnut leaves and nuts. You'll want to not put those in your compost, but your wood ashes can be added in small quantities. Another secret to a good compost pile is to turn your pile every 7 to 10 days. So they have different compost aerators. They've got turn diggers. You can also just use a regular old pitchfork, or some people, if they don't even have that, you can just take a broom handle, and if you poke holes, new holes each week, that'll be good enough too. Don't forget to hydrate. The compost should feel like a wrung out sponge. You can either add water from the hose, or if you have a rain barrel, you can add that water to your compost bin. So you can compost your way. There's many different ways out there. Sometimes some get to be a little more complicated, but I like to keep it very simple. So I do a lazy person's compost, where basically I'm just putting stuff into my compost as I'm generating it in my kitchen, in my yard. I want to make sure I keep it moist enough. And I'm going to need to be patient because it's probably going to take like a year or a little bit longer, but usually every April or every May, I am able to compost or gather some compost from my compost bin and use that in my garden. So if people want to have fast compost, they can create a pile all at once, make sure that they're adding enough water, turning the pile every week. And as quickly as 4 weeks, you can have finished compost, but this is going to be like a large pile that maybe like a garden center can create. The average backyard probably wouldn't have that big of a pile to be able to make fast compost. Screening is not necessary, but I find it's really fun. And also I have a 1-bin system. So a lot of times in the springtime, there'll be banana peels or apple cores at the top of my pile, and they're obviously not composted down yet. They haven't broken down. So I will take the top part of it off. I'll take the bottom half or the bottom 2/3 of my pile. And then if you run it through a grate, the finished compost will fall through your screen, and you're going to have beautiful compost to put in the garden or to share. But like I said, it's not necessary. It's just kind of makes the compost a little more uniform in size, and it makes it so it's a little more fun to share when it doesn't have big clumps of stuff in there. And then as far as starting a new compost pile, you kind of want the air to get into the bottom of your compost pile. So whether you have a bin system or you have in-ground system, you want to put a pile of sticks in the bottom, and that way air can come up through your compost bin. And then sometimes you want to add whatever compost or your materials that weren't quite ready. So kind of put some of those banana peels or apple cores that were just in there, maybe just like a month, and then put those in there, and then you can start your new compost pile. There are some simple tests. I found it on the Iowa Stormwater Education Program. I thought that these are really good tests to test if your compost is finished. So the first test is a bag test. So sealing the compost in a bag, and then after like 2 or 3 days, kind of give a little whiff. And if it doesn't have any odor, then that compost is finished. It is ready to go into the garden or use with pots. The next test is a germination test. And you can see if the seeds germinate, then the compost is ready. I know I have probably not answered all of your composting questions in this short time this evening, so I encourage you to visit the Trac Education Team YouTube page. Earlier this month, we recorded an in-depth presentation about both backyard composting and vermicomposting which is indoor composting with worms. Our channel also houses a collection of our favorite composting, recycling, and other waste-related videos. Thank you for the opportunity to chat with you, and I encourage you all to contact us by phone or through our website if you have any questions regarding what to do with various waste materials or how to get started with backyard composting. Thank you.
All right, thanks for that insightful look at reducing waste and being a little greener. I've seen a few folks that have popped up questions. I don't know if you want to field those, Tammy.
Yeah, I think I addressed the one as far as doing the compost test. So usually if you do like the bag test or that germination test, that will let you know that it is mature enough and it would be safe enough to use. I'm not aware if there's any pathogen tests, like where you could take a sample and send it into any labs. I'm not sure if you know about that, Josh, at all.
Yeah, I can't say that I have. I'm not aware of any labs that would test for that.
Okay. And then another one was how to compost citrus peels. I put them in there. They get rather moldy. But I like to do the citrus peels outdoors in my backyard compost bin. I don't put those because I have a worm composting system. It's a vermicomposting system that's indoors. So the citrus peels can cause problems with my little red worms. So I do just put the citrus peels outside, and I mean, it takes some time, but they'll be fine in the backyard compost bin.
Looks like there was one more asking about what to do with textbooks.
Oh yeah, that's a hard one. Nobody wants textbooks. Even like a lot of our charities, they don't want them. So I guess for us, we usually try and encourage people to do upcycling with their old textbooks. So when we get them, like I'll work with kids and we make like paper flowers, or we've done different things where we cut our textbooks apart and make like pumpkins. So you can kind of cut your books apart and make different crafts with them. But that is, yeah, that there's no market for the books. That's a hard one.
Had another one come in, advice for the piles not getting hot enough.
Okay, these are some of the slides I took out. So you can use compost starters or compost activators. Some people will put composted chicken manure in there, and that'll kind of like give a little boost of nitrogen to your pile and kind of help it get started, get a little bit hotter. But just kind of getting that recipe right, and I would say stirring it, and then also just making sure that it does feel like a wrung out sponge, because it's those microorganisms in the bin. They're doing the work, and that's where you get the heat. And so keep those little microorganisms happy. So that's gonna be like stirring your pile, adding enough water.
All right, well, thanks so much, Tammy, really appreciate it. And if you have more questions, go ahead, feel free to continue writing in the chat, and yep, Tammy will go ahead and follow up with that. And so next, we have another brave soul who's going to be giving a presentation live. I would say everyone else kind of chickened out and used the video record, but yeah, Stephen Eilers with the Extension Master Gardeners is going to go ahead and highlight sustainable gardening. All right, so Stephen, if you want to go ahead and screen share. Yep, okay, perfect. That's coming up. And go ahead and take it away.
Okay, am I loud enough?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, and Josh, do you want to be my moving my slides ahead?
So I think with you doing the screen share that you should have access for it.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey, there we go. Okay, perfect. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for staying with us tonight. Spring is in the air and we're thinking about gardens. A little bit early right now, I know, but when it gets this nice, it's hard not to think about that. So again, great job, Josh, of lining us up. A lot of the things I'll talk about have been touched on with our various wonderful participants. So this is great timing. So again, I am Stephen Eilers from Iowa State Extension and Outreach of Black Hawk County. I'm the Urban Ag Specialist. And here we go. So real quick, what we'll cover, the best practices for garden sustainability, where to plant, planting with others, growing season ideas, composting, seed saving, native plants, using chemicals, mulch, and watering. Starting with the basics, use planting space well. We get a lot of calls on this, and during our Master Gardener class, we get a lot of questions on where to plant. So you're going to want to plant your garden in full sun. There's an asterisk by that. Last summer was one of the hottest summers on record, and we've had kind of increasingly hot summers. If you can find a space that maybe offers a little afternoon shade, so by the time it gets maybe to 5 or 6 o'clock, that you have a little bit of shade on some of your plants. A lot of our plants actually don't do too well if they get too hot. They burn up. So having a little bit of later afternoon shade can actually be a blessing. Avoid wet spots in your landscape, in your yard, with bad drainage. That would be, again, referring back to Josh's presentation. That might not be a great space for a traditional garden, but that might be a great place for a rain garden. If you have soil that maybe not great, a lot of clay, a lot of rocks, just kind of worn out, and we get people who have very bad soil, a raised bed can do wonders. You get to control the soil in your bed, combination of store-bought soil or compost and a lot of other great ingredients. You can really create very nice growing conditions pretty much overnight, and for not a lot of money. Every couple of years, you just add a little more soil to it, and you have a great spot. And if you ever have to move or take it down, it's really not that hard to undo as well. Consider mixing vegetable plants with your flower beds. If you have, well, you can say, well, my best sun hits my flower bed to the front of the house, but where I have the most room, I don't have the best sun. Well, there's nothing that says you can't put a tomato plant in with your zinnias, or put a potato plant here and there. You would treat it just like any other garden soil, adding with the flowers. It actually is, they're going to blend right in. It's not going to look like a garden. It's going to look like a cool flower bed. And honestly, there's really nothing wrong with, if you have a limited space, making your flower beds into your garden space. A lot of people in bigger cities do that, who have much, much smaller space than we're used to here. So that is another great option. Plan and plant with others. You don't have to plant everything, okay? What I mean by that is divide and conquer. Take turns. Now, we all know somebody who plants a lot of zucchini and has enough zucchini for everybody you know. I know people that plant 30 tomato plants. They have enough tomatoes for everybody. Same with cucumbers. There's a lot of things that grow really well. You yourself don't have to plant everything. Get with a neighbor, get with a sister, a cousin, somebody from your church, somebody from your work that is planting a garden. This also helps with crop rotation. So if you've planted tomatoes in the best spot for several, 2 to 3 years, you know you really shouldn't plant tomatoes or from that family there again. Maybe this is your chance for that neighbor to do the tomatoes and the peppers this year. Maybe it's your turn for zucchini. Maybe your area is better suited for something. So you're going to work with your friend or neighbor or coworker or whoever it is. You kind of become your own CSA. So you don't have to plant everything. Plant to your strengths. Know what you do best. If you're someone who doesn't necessarily do great with tomatoes but love them, and you have a neighbor who does, maybe it's their turn to do the tomatoes this year. And again, not everybody needs to plant cucumbers. They start off small, they take over your yard. Same with zucchini. So spreading that out a little bit amongst your friends creates a little more interest, and you can kind of rotate the responsibilities around. And in the end, you still get all the great produce. You just didn't have to do it all yourself. Plan for a longer growing season. Again, Iowa weather, we've had snow in May. We've had Cinco de Mayo little blizzards. We've had warm weather well into November. It's kind of up and down, very cold winters, very hot summers. But in the spring, there's a lot of great things you can start early, especially if you have any kind of little growing box or little small greenhouse. Radishes, lettuce, a lot of the greens like kale, spinach, mustard, carrots, peas, and turnips are all early season vegetables that you can have a good crop with earlier, really before the heat of the summer gets started. A lot of these don't do well in the heat, so you're going to want to benefit of having them early. As summer grows on, there are plants that love the heat. Sweet potatoes, various peppers, zucchini and summer squash, Swiss chard, okra, eggplant, green beans. These are all the heat plants. So those are the ones that you want to start later. A lot of these are started from plants I know that you buy. And again, these are going to be your hot lovers. Now, as the season cools off, if you've been paying attention, you know that we, like I mentioned, have some really warm days well through the early fall. And those are cooler nights, a little bit less sunlight, but still some wonderful growing conditions. So this is where you can get a repeat of some of your favorite things you planted maybe early in the season: radishes, lettuces, greens, carrots, peas, and turnips. And keep in mind, carrots can stay in the ground a very long time. They actually get sweeter after a first frost. Some of the other below ground plants can too. You don't need to be pulled in August. Actually, they do well staying a little bit later. So this gives you a more sustainable, longer garden patch that you're starting in late spring and gardening well into the fall. So you get the benefit of these great vegetables for a longer growing season. Learning about compost. Obviously, we just learned a great deal from Tammy. I can't say anything new that she didn't say. We all know now what compost does. The picture there is very simple. As she said, you can use wood scraps, you can use wire, you can buy a system. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't need to be expensive. But compost is a wonderful, black gold. Compost is wonderful for your gardens, for your flower beds, for even in your pots, mixed in with the different types of soil. So if you're not composting, give it a try. It doesn't need to be huge. You don't need to spend a lot of time and money. You don't need to buy a tractor. You can also use the compost that many of our cities, Cedar Falls and Waterloo, do tremendous composting, and they're big piles, and it's turned well and watered. They get hot enough to kill the bacteria and the bad seeds, and it's free, especially after some of the bad weathers we've had. There's been a lot of stuff composted, and they have mounds and mounds of it available. So if you've not tried it, start off with a small amount, see what you think. You can buy some while you're making your own. So there's a lot of great options. Seed saving and seed exchange. We talked some of this with the Tallgrass Prairie on the Prairie seeds. Your garden is full of next year's seeds. Full. That's where seeds come from. When you buy the seeds in the package, they were in a garden growing somewhere in mass and were simply collected. Saving your seeds saves you money. It's oddly satisfying. There is something very neat about going to the garden and collecting seeds. Be willing to share your seeds with others. Every zinnia petal is next year's zinnia, and zinnias are so plentiful. Do you know how many seeds you can get just by going out and plucking the petals at the right time? So share them with others. If you have a garden friend and you see something really fantastic in their garden, most gardeners are willing to share. So say, hey, can you save me one of those? Can you cut the head off and save me one or two of those? And do the same for them. You'll get a lot more bang for basically no bucks. You have the seed exchange party in the late fall, where almost like the cookie walks that they have, where you can have a seed walk. Harvest seeds at the right time. Obviously, you want to get, where the seeds are going to be drying out at the end of their life cycle, but don't wait too long. You'll be fighting birds. Again, don't leave some for the birds, leave some for the animals. Don't starve them out. But odds are, if you've planted any type of flower bed or seeds, there is a lot to be had for both of you. Store them properly to avoid rot, not in sealed Ziploc bags, or you'll have a mess on your hands. Don't leave things out in the very cold in your garage. You might want to bring them to your basement. And label, label, label. You might know right now which ones are which ones, but in 6 months you might not. I once had 3 cool, like the old school squash pumpkins. I had a blue one, a cheese wheel, and a white one. And I gutted them and I took all the seeds out, put them in individual things, did not label them that day. No idea which one was which. So make sure you label. And again, using paper envelopes or paper bags is really your best method after they've been dried. Going back to, we talked about native plants with the Tallgrass Prairie. You know, your whole garden doesn't need to be vegetables. It can be a mix of vegetables and flowers. Some of the best ones are. It can be all flowers. Planting natives, they're tough, they're perennials, they have great root structure, which is good for your garden. Use a lot of these plants as your structure plants. These are the ones that are going to be there and provide the structure, the bones for your garden for several years. As you move other plants around to rotate, you'll always have the structure of these fantastic perennial plants. They're heat and cold tolerant because they're Iowa natives. They can take last week's extreme cold. They can take next July's extreme hot because they're suited for a climate. As they mentioned, butterfly milkweed, the Menard, the bee balm, spiderwort, prairie clover, the various coneflowers, the lobelia swamp milkweed, all great plants. And again, these can get your confidence up because they're easy to grow and they're hard to kill, and they come back every year on their own. Using chemicals wisely, wisely being the operative word. Read and follow label directions. If you look at the labels, a lot of them now have the ones that pull out. They're very small writing. I'll give you that. They can be hard to read. You can always go to a website or do what you have to do to read it well. Do not use more chemicals than recommended. I'm not saying don't use chemicals. I'm not saying use only chemicals, but use them as you're directed. More is not better. I think sometimes we think if I spray this weed with 3 times as much, it'll die 3 times as fast. Not a good idea. Use non-chemical options when possible. You know, there's nothing better than pulling a weed or hoeing a weed. That can be more satisfying, actually, especially if you've had a bad day. Pulling weeds can be very cathartic. Don't expect perfection. We get a lot of calls here at Extension, people that want the perfect lawn. They want to live on the golf course where they, want no weeds, everything to be perfectly perfect. That's not real life. I say if you knew the amount of chemicals and time and money that golf courses spent to look perfect, you'd be amazed. So don't lower your standards, but have the correct standards for your lawn. Plant disease-resistant varieties of whatever you plant. That's going to help a lot too. They're going to be a lot healthier and they won't need the chemicals. Proper watering prevents many problems. Plants that are either too wet or too dry tend to get more diseases. So keeping your plants watered properly and your lawn. A drought brown lawn is going to get a lot more weeds. A lawn that is cut too short is going to get a lot more weeds and a lot more burn. So again, proper mowing height and those type of habits really help. So I think we're getting a lot smarter now about not shaving our lawns like we have in the past, but raising that blade a little bit, you're going to get a much, much healthier looking lawn with much less chemicals or no chemicals needed. And as she mentioned before, one of our speakers, discarding diseased plants. Some plants should not be recycled and they should not be composted. If you have something that's been diseased or in the garden, I know our natural inclination as gardeners is how can, I'm going to throw it in the compost bin. Don't do that. Those actually need to go in the good old fashioned garbage and be gotten rid of. Or if you're in the country or a place of a burn pile, that might even be a better option. Increased mulching. Proper mulching is wonderful. It can reduce weeds. It can reduce watering because it holds more moisture in. It can increase the worms and the microbes underneath the mulch on the soil. which is wonderful for aeration and just overall soil health. It reduces spattering of soil. When you get a really hard rain and the rain hits it and bounces it back up onto, we see a lot on tomatoes and peppers where the soil will bounce back up and then stick and then cause a wound and then cause it to rot. You can also use mulch, by the way, in your pots to do the same thing. Reduce weeds that might fall in, reduce watering. You won't increase your worms, but it will reduce your spattering also during a hard rain or a water. So even in the pots on your patio or your steps or wherever, look into some mulch. And another kind of a shallower thing, mulch looks pretty. It actually makes it's instant gratification. When you planted everything in the spring, when your hosses are coming out and you can put a new layer of kind of mulch, it just is the finishing touch and can look great. Find the mulch that works for you. It's not one size fits all, depending on where you're mulching and what you're mulching. You can use straw, wood chips, grass clippings, shredded paper, store-bought or homemade mulch. Funny story I tell myself, I had a lawn that had a lot of creeping Charlie. So I was going to use the grass clippings on my small garden. So after mowing, I raked up a bunch of the grass and I put it on my garden. And a couple weeks later, I was amazed that my whole garden had turned to creeping Charlie. So note to self, don't put heavily chemically treated grass as mulch, and don't use weed-based lawns as mulch. So I learned my lesson. It took a lot to get rid of the creeping Charlie mulch that I had created for myself. And this was after being a master gardener for several years. So it happens to everybody. Utilizing saved water. Again, going back to one of our earlier great presentations, the rain barrels are great. I have a kiddie pool that the kids utilize. Now this is a very small, the plastic, the under $10 one with the, it's orange and has fishies on the bottom and the kids play in it. This is not chlorinated. This is just hose water that is in there for a while. Usually after the kids are in it, there's a lot of grass in it and a lot of dead bugs and a lot of yuck. Before I dump it out, first of all, it's very, very hard to dump out a kiddie pool. So you're gonna end up bailing it out anyway. Save some of that. Use buckets. I will go around and fill up my watering cans and do a lot of watering just with the kiddie pool water. It's free. It prevents that wet spot when you do get to dump it on your lawn. And you can water. You'd be amazed how much water is in there. And it doesn't matter that it's not necessarily that clean. And your chemicals have dissipated. Buckets, if you don't have a place where you could utilize a true rain barrel, setting buckets out during a hard rain or even having 5-gallon buckets with close to the water spouts. If you don't have a lot to water, utilizing the buckets are going to be just miniature rain barrels. Rainwater is free. It doesn't go on your water bill. Your water bill is not going to soar. There are no city added chemicals, which is great. You don't have to wait for it to burn off and to be better. We did talk before, I know somebody mentioned mosquitoes. You want to prevent the mosquito farms, as I said, with netting. There's a lot of different things you could find, even adding a drop of bleach to kill those mosquito larvae, because you do not want your saved water to turn into a mosquito farm. That is not good for anybody unless you have a bat house. There is some question, people say using rain barrels for the vegetable gardens. There's some concern there with the chemicals that come off the roof. That is a concern. We can definitely recommend that it is great for flowering gardens. And just use some caution before you use it for your vegetable gardens. Questions? Josh, do you have the chat up?
Yes.
I'll put my information. Okay. And again, I am very reachable. I'm here at the Extension Office in Black Hawk County. We're here to serve you. So let us know as we get closer to garden season. And we will be doing a seed giveaway. I'm going to do a little plug there. Look for more information on that coming in March, and probably doing the seed distribution starting in April. So lots of great seeds that we'd love to share with all of you. So questions? Thank you, Josh.
No, thank you, Steve. And I would say that that's fantastic and very timely with these nice warm days we've kind of had here recently. Gets me pretty excited for spring on the horizon. And looks like, yeah, we
It's
had
amazing how nice 40 feels.
Yeah. And looks like we had a few comments come in. I'm not seeing any questions yet.
I am not Larry, son. Actually, I am from Grundy County. But yes, thank you. There's not a lot of Eilers in the phone book, so we're probably all related.
Okay, so we'll have
Any other questions?
Well, not seeing any at the moment, but I just wanted to go ahead and throw up the screen share option so you can go ahead and see contact information for all of the speakers this evening, the topics that they highlighted, as well as their email, phone, and websites where you can learn more information. Because I know we just barely scratched the surface. I mean, this was kind of intended to be a crash course for conservation. So there's so much more you can learn. So definitely go ahead, connect with these wonderful folks, check out their websites. There's lots of resources out there. So please do that. And I guess I'm going to have to try and wrap things up. So let me do a few last plugs. Oh, oops. Okay, so some of you folks might have attended this evening because of the promise of prizes. So most of our partners were very generous and provided some prize donations. So to be eligible for that, you had to attend this evening, but we also need you to fill out a survey and provide feedback. We want to continue providing these conservation workshops each year, and we want to make it the best possible. So your feedback will help us direct what next year is going to be like. And so there's that link included right there on the bottom. I'll also be following up with attendees and probably shoot you an email with this link information. So if you could fill that out here in the next few days, we'll maybe give you till next Thursday as the timeline for that. Then once you complete the survey, that's when we'll go ahead and coordinate the following week, that week of March 8th, I do believe. We'll host a live event where we'll have the prize drawing giveaway and follow up with the winners there. So go ahead and let's see, I think the one other thing I wanted to go ahead and highlight that there is, if you enjoyed what you learned this evening, there will be another event coming up here in June, the Practical Backyard Tour, and this is a partnership by many of the organizations this evening, but also involves the Healthy Cedar Valley Coalition. So it'll be a great opportunity if you want to learn about some of these different conservation opportunities. That'll be here on June 19th, so go ahead and put that on your calendar. And yeah, I think that's everything that I had. So just want to thank all the attendees this evening. Thank you for your interest in conservation. Thank you to all of our wonderful presenters for highlighting all these wonderful opportunities. But I think with that, it's 8:31. So really appreciate your attention, and you folks take care, stay well, and enjoy yourselves. I would say spring's on the horizon. So thanks, folks.